Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni wanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jed Lee, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored that you'll join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show. And please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Himalaya, and Ghana, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is Dinh. She's here to celebrate her powerful picture book, Where the Wildflowers Grow. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Mickey on the Move, a great series of books from Michelle Wagner. We really love these books. You're going to love Mickey, the main character in both books, Mickey on the Move and Mickey on the Move Farming. And these big-hearted books, you're going to learn the real story of a young boy who's deaf, who is aided by his mom and his teachers in navigating new school and farm experiences. Mickey is just like everyone else, except he wears cochlear implants and has to do things just a little differently than most kids. This charming tale reminds us that we can all find happiness if we lean on and support each other. You're really going to love these books. I love these books. It's a great way to remind kids that kids who are different and kids who may have a disability or a learning challenge, they can be great friends. Check it out today. Mickey on the Move and Mickey on the Move Farming, two great books from Michelle Wagner. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Mr. Thoughtful Gets Into Trouble. Great new children's book from Christopher Arsenault. Join Mr. Thoughtful on an exhilarating voyage through the wondrous world of thoughts and emotions. Discover the magic of kindness and positivity as Mr. Thoughtful embarks on an adventure that not only sparks creativity, but also nurtures children's self-esteem, leaving young minds inspired and empowered. You are going to love meeting Mr. Thoughtful. He is your friendly guide through the world of thoughts and kindness. And you and your kids will both love joining in his adventure and discovering the power of positive thinking and the joy of choosing kindness over chaos. We love this book. You'll love it too. It's Mr. Thoughtful Gets Into Trouble by Christopher Arsenault. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Texas. Our guest is here today to celebrate her really powerful picture book. Is called Where the Wildflowers Grow. Please welcome to the show, Dinh. Hi, how are you?
I am doing so great. Thank you so much for having me today.
I'm really happy that you're on the show today. I think I think the universe works in very mysterious ways. This interview's been rescheduled a couple of times, and so I really appreciate your patience with us in making that happen. But there are things that are going to be going on in my life that I think it's really appropriate that we're talking about this book today. This book, as I understand it, tells your story. Is that right?
Yes, it's based on my memories of living in a refugee camp in the Philippines before I moved to America from Vietnam in the late 1980s.
You know, I have memories of one of the mass migrations from Vietnam. I think it was called the boat people, where people would literally, I think we've forgotten right now, were risking their lives. And we hear a lot about people risking their lives going from Cuba to Florida, which is a treacherous journey of about 90 miles. But the journey that folks took to get from Vietnam to America was much more treacherous.
Yes, much more treacherous and much more dangerous. Lucky for our family, we were able to go through the United Nations. We received amnesty with refugee status. And so we actually flew from Vietnam to the Philippines to stay in a refugee camp. And then we waited to be sponsored by Catholic Charities to come to America. So in that aspect, our family, our journey to America was much safer for sure than all the brave men, women, and children who risked their lives to find a better way for their family and a better future. And they knew that they had to leave the only home that they ever knew so that they could find a better beginning for themselves.
And I think that's one thing that's lost on the current debate that's around immigration or, people coming in through the southern border right now. No matter where you are on that issue, I think it's really paramount that we remember what we're talking about are human beings. And
yes, that is so important.
Yeah, we're talking about human beings who are, for the most part, fleeing a country where it's no longer safe for them to live. And they're leaving everything. And they are, you, as you said, your family was lucky in that you were able to fly from Vietnam to the Philippines. However, I am imagining that in going out and seeking that refugee status, your family was probably put in some kind of danger.
So what happened was that after the war, my father had a really hard time finding work, being that the opposition was now in power. His opportunities were extremely limited. And with the 6 children and then my mom and dad, the 8 of us, it was really hard to find, a bright future for us children and to have a good and safe life back in Vietnam. It was really hard for them financially, both my parents. So when we were given the opportunity through the Immigration Act to apply for refugee status, my family was very excited because we knew that that really was our ticket to a better life. Mm-hmm. And even though we were able to fly to the Philippines and stay in the refugee camp to wait to be sponsored, the journey was, for my parents, I feel, was very difficult for them because Vietnam was all that they knew. Mm-hmm. They knew that they literally had to start all over again. And I don't think I understood it when I was young, how difficult that is for adults to start something new. Mm-hmm. Until I became a mom myself. And then I put myself in their shoes. And I asked myself what would happen if we had no other choice but to leave the home that we ever knew and then start somewhere else where you have no connections, you have no true understanding of your new home, you don't know the language, and then you're having to also raise children there and start a new beginning and try to be hopeful, but also just being human, just being very nervous, but also anxious at the same time, but trying your best to cope with all the emotions and try to be so positive for your children because you just want to be there for them. Yep. And I think that the essence of my story is that, yes, I want to tell the story of how our family came to America, and the setting is so special because it's not one that is often talked about in children's literature. But also that I wanted the young readers and their families and the teachers and anyone who picked up the book to really see the human side of the family, of the child refugee, and all the emotions that go through their minds and in all the experiences that they've gone through to get them to that point. And I really love that you touch on how, when you hear of all the stories of people risking their lives coming to America as we speak. You really have to stop and think about like the human side. What caused them to be so brave, to go on that treacherous journey for themselves and for their family, to find freedom and safety.
Yeah. Yes. Now, we're talking about folks coming up from Venezuela, from folks from Africa flying to Ecuador and then coming up. The journey, people may not realize it, but right now, anybody that starts their journey to the United States in South America, they first have to walk through the Darien Gap, which is a 100-mile stretch of jungle in Panama. That is, there's no roads. It's deadly. And then just think about walking through Central America, through Mexico, and if it was just walking, that's one thing. But now you're also talking about cartels and all sorts of folks who are looking to victimize people who are the most vulnerable people in the world. And again, you can be on either side of this issue, but I think what I don't hear when I hear people arguing about this, I don't hear them talking about the human beings that are that are central to this issue. So I'm really happy that we're here talking about this. Tell us a little bit, what was it like? We hear the, refugee camps. That's a term that most of us have heard, but I don't think many of us understand what that means. What was it like living in a refugee camp in the Philippines?
So this is kind of the reason why I wanted to really highlight this special setting in the story, because a lot of times when we hear about refugee camps, understandably, we think of children crying and people who are displaced looking for a new beginning, a new home. The refugee camp in the Philippines where we stayed at was a very special place because most of the people who were living there were granted refugee status. So they knew that it was just a matter of time that they would be sponsored to find a new home, mainly in America, or they could fly to Canada or other European countries or in Australia. So there was a sense of hopefulness. There was a sense of like optimism that ran through the refugee camp. And those were the memories that I kept with me, even though when I was there, I was only 5 years old. But I just remembered that when we left Vietnam, how excited my parents were. I had no understanding. I just knew that we were leaving. They were telling me that we're going to a better place, a new home. And then I found myself in a refugee camp in the Philippines. I was like, oh, is this America? Is it really? Is this America? And so then it was explained to me that we were going to like temporarily live here until we were sponsored. And to me, I was very okay with it because it was like kind of living in Vietnam again, because a lot of the people who were living on outside of the refugee camp also came from Vietnam. So we all spoke the same language, and it was a very happy and optimistic place because everybody would introduce themselves and they would be, well, when are you leaving? When are you leaving? And it was just a community in itself. My siblings were able to find friends who were Catholic, and they wanted to join the youth group, the Vietnamese Eucharistic youth group that was there at camp. That people came together and they're like, oh yes, we believe in the same faith. Let's start, our own church. And that's what they did. And my siblings got to know the kids there and they wanted to join the youth group. So then they came home and told my mom, like, Mom, we want to join the youth group, but they said we have to be Catholic. What do you think about that? And lo and behold, my mom had been praying when we were in Vietnam, when she went to the market every day, she would go past a church and she would stop by a statue of Mary in front of the church and she would pray. And she would pray that one day, if we were ever given an opportunity for a better life to come to America, she would allow her children to follow the faith. Now, my parents, my mom has already passed away, but both my parents, they didn't really have a religion that they followed. They're kind of like Buddhists just by tradition and by culture, but they didn't really practice it. And so this was really special when my older siblings came to my mom and asked for it. She just knew that it was kind of like a guiding light from the beginning that just kept shining its way into our family and into our path to America. And so she said, yes, if this is something that you choose for yourself, you have to be committed to it and you have to follow the faith. And you can decide for yourself if this is the path you want to take, but I will be there. We will be there to support you. And so that was kind of like our family's first taste of like this sense of freedom, freedom of religion happening in our own family. And it was just really special. And so then my siblings were then connected with more friends in the community, and my parents got to know other families, and we were able to go to English classes and really got to know the Filipino teachers who taught there at camp and really welcomed us with like both arms and made us feel welcomed and that we belonged and that we all deserve a better future.
What a beautiful story. And, I really love this. I'm imagining that a lot of folks, when they hear, a picture book about people living in refugee camps. Yeah, I don't know. That sounds kind of depressing. And I don't know if I want to read that with my kids, despite, the great conversations we can have. But it sounds like this is a really wonderful, upbeat, love-filled book that can absolutely spark some great and really needed conversations with families within a family. But I also think it gives a lot of hope and just what a beautiful story. Like even in the darkest times, we can find each other. We can find a community. We can see that, yes, we all belong to this beautiful human family and we can lift each other up.
And that really was like my goal when I was writing this story. Just like you said, when we think of refugee camps, we think of like a place that's very depressing, but also that minimizes basically experiences of all people, we got very lucky. Our experiences at the refugee camp was very optimistic and very hopeful. And that's what I wanted to like bring to the table. That's what I wanted to highlight. Like you said, like in situations where like we find that it's so difficult, children are also going through it. They're also processing it. They're also trying to unpack the best that they can with the limited resources and knowledge that they have of what is going on. And that's what I wanted to show the reader, like through the character, that even though she's in a refugee camp, that is happiness to her. She came from Vietnam where she saw and witnessed her parents struggle to make a living, to provide for the family. And then suddenly now they're living in a bunkhouse, but the food is provided to them. They're all going to school. They're surrounded by a community of, people of similar backgrounds, and they're all speaking the same language. They're all being very happy and optimistic. And she doesn't understand why she has to leave. To her, in her mind, that's America. Like, okay, so this is it. This is how wonderful, like, you're coming from a place of hardship, and then now everyone is happy and optimistic and hopeful. And then it's like, okay, but today is moving day. And her mom and dad are so happy, her siblings are also happy, even though they are packing up all their memories and all the friendships that they're taking with them. But she's young. She doesn't understand why leave now, because they finally found a place where they're actually very happy to be there. And so Ha is trying to think through everything and balancing and saying goodbye to her best friend, and saying goodbye to her teacher, but also thinking and keeping that hope that everyone is feeling around her, and knowing that, yes, there is anxiety there that children feel, and it's very real. There are mixed emotions that children feel that are very real, but they also are so resilient that they will find the good in every single situation that they're in, and they'll find a way to grow from it. And that's why we named the story Where Wildflowers Grow, because we really want to use the image of wildflowers growing anywhere and everywhere around the world. Wherever life is possible, wildflowers will grow. And it's carrying that hope with her to America.
Well, I'm really excited. I mentioned earlier that this is a really timely conversation. I am about when people are listening to this podcast, because we record early and then release it later on. By the time people hear this, I will be in El Salvador with a group called Clowns Without Borders, and I'll be performing for families in refugee camps, folks who are leaving Venezuela and other countries, migrants and people who've been displaced internally in El Salvador due to violence. And it's something that I've been looking forward to, something that there's a little bit of apprehension, because this is a new adventure for me, and I'm a very old man. But you've just given me all sorts of I'm really looking forward to it right now, because what I expect I'm going to find is a lot of smiles and some real communities, and that makes me very, very happy.
When you shared that you were going on this journey, and I was just blown away, because if I were still back in the, refugee camp, and somebody took their time to come and entertain me, to take me as a way to escape the environment that I'm in, the situation that I'm in, for just, half an hour. That is right there is such a present. It would allow me to be a kid again.
Wow.
Just experience that joy again. And I think that is so impactful, and that is so wonderful what you're doing.
Well, thank you. For me, it's a way to give back. I've been blessed. You mentioned your siblings wanting to join the Catholic Youth Group. I have a tremendous faith. It could be stronger at lots of times, but, it's been there and it's carried me through, and I feel that I've been very blessed in so many ways. And for me, this is a way to give back. But I have a feeling, like most of my life, when I thought I was giving back, this is actually going to be a chance for me to be blessed again. So thank you for helping me understand that. We need to help the people who are listening know where to go, where they can find out more about where the wildflowers grow, and find out more about you, because you have a lot going on. You're a teacher, and you're providing not only this beautiful picture book, but lots of things for teachers. Tell us all about your website, where we can find it.
So you can definitely get Where Wildflowers Grow from the Penguin Random House website. So you can go penguinrandomhouse.com to find the book, Where Wildflowers Grow, or you can also get it on Amazon. As you mentioned, I have 16 years of teaching experience. I've taught first grade and second grade. Right now, I'm taking a short break so I could work more on my writing career. And this picture book is my debut picture book. I have another picture book coming up in spring 2025 with Random House Studio, and it's also based on my culture, my Vietnamese culture, and of a gift that my mom gave me. So the story is called The Jade Bracelet. So I'm very excited for that as well. But I am, like you mentioned, I'm very active online. You can find me on Instagram at Hello Mrs. Dinh. That is where I continue to share my love, my passion, and my teaching ideas with teachers all around the world. My hope is that through education, we can help all children learn, help all children find the fun and the love in learning so that they can continue to grow and blossom no matter where they are.
Absolutely. Amen. We've had a really wonderful time speaking to the author of Where the Wildflowers Grow, the debut picture book from our guest, Ha Dinh. Ha, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate having the opportunity to share my story with you and your audience.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Josh Funk. He'll be here to celebrate Dear Unicorn. We hope you will be here to celebrate with us. Hey, speaking of celebration, I am excited to let you know that I am on my way down to beautiful El Salvador. I will be touring El Salvador with Clowns Without Borders. If you would like to learn more about this tour, please be sure to check out our interview with Naomi Schaefer. She is the boss clown and the driving force behind Clowns Without Borders. You can also visit their website, clownswithoutborders.org. I will let you know we are looking for some folks to help fill up the gas tank of our clown car, bus, van. Not quite sure what we'll be traveling around in, but we do need some support to help fill up that tank. We'll be traveling all over El Salvador, and we'd really love for you to join us on this tour. So check it out today, clownswithoutborders.org. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we're going to start by thanking our guest, Ha Dinh. Please be sure to check out her powerful picture book, Where the Wildflowers Grow. Also want to thank our sponsors, Michelle Wagner. She is the author of Mickey on the Move and Mickey on the Move Farming. Two powerful books that remind kids that kids who are deaf and who are struggling with hearing loss can be amazing friends. Also want to thank our friend Christopher Arsenault. Be sure to check out his debut book, Mr. Thoughtful Gets Into Trouble. I want to thank my amazing team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Ann O'Leary, Soji Franklin, Christopher Doherty. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.